Hello, BookTube. It's Peg and Martine.
Hello.
Welcome back to the History Shelf for our wrap-up of The Body in the Library. It's long overdue. This is part of our A Marple a Month series. Kind of got off track a little bit in December, but back on track. January, I've decided we're just going to read The Moving Finger. February, we have A Murder is Announced to look forward to. But for right now, we're going to talk about our reading of The Body in the Library.
Yes.
Okay.
I can't remember a single thing. I'm like, yes, there was a body and there was a library.
So The Body in the Library, we both liked it.
We did, very much.
Yes.
Why did you like it?
I like the assortment of characters. I like the fact that they got out of St. Mary Mead a little bit. I was intrigued by the cast of characters. It kind of branched out a bit more away from the vicar. You know,
though we do miss Len.
I do miss Len, but he does show up in this book.
Yes.
There's a quick,
There's a mention of it.
There was a mention also that he has a baby.
Right.
And so that was neat.
And he hasn't killed it yet, so he's doing okay. He's doing great.
Yeah, and the vicar's wife, Zelda, I knew it began with a G.
I knew it was a cat name. Yeah.
And there's a mention in her how out going shopping for the baby stuff. But she seemed like she's a real happy mom. But so the cast of characters for this, we have Dolly Bantry shows up.
Can we just...
Yeah.
Dolly Bantry is my favorite character, I think, in the Marple universe. I love Dolly, and whether it's Gwen Watson, who played the original in the Joan Hickson adaptation, or Joanna Lumley,
I love her.
They just chewed up every piece of furniture they could find in every scene they were in, and I love Dolly.
I like Dolly too, and I really like Joanna Lumley's Joanna Lumley's version.
By murder, just absolutely thrilled. The Body in the Library is the best thing that's ever happened, and that's in the book too. There is this ongoing sense with some of Christie's work, like death is a game, and it's all tra la la, and it's jolly hockey sticks, and tickety boo, and then Marple or Poirot come in, and they're like. Not so much, really.
Yeah, there's bad things happening here.
Yeah.
This particular novel, it begins in the Bantry house, right? And the maid in the Bantry household finds just a body in the library, just like you do. And apparently, from a little bit of research I did on this, Agatha Christie said, the body in the library is like the cliche of murder stories.
I would agree with that.
She wanted to actually use that just to say, yes, I'm actually writing about a tried and true cliche in the mystery writer biz.
And then she kind of subverts it.
And she subverts it big time.
Yeah.
So there was a wide range of characters that could lend themselves to being involved with this. Like, the big thing they had to tackle was, who is it? Like, who is this body? But anyway, Dolly Bantry and Miss Marple are good friends, so as soon as Dolly finds that there's a body in the library, and her husband, Arthur, he's like, what is this about? What is this business about? I have no idea who this is. So she's like, I'm calling Jane. Just starts getting into the mix, Mr. Slack, and then Colonel Melchett. We have a little cheat sheet here, guys.
He was in the preceding.
Yes, he was. But so we have Inspector Slack, which we really like Inspector Slack. He's growing on me, So then the book brings in a whole new life, something that must have, obviously existed back in the 40s or 50s, whenever this was set.
I think it came out in 42.
Yeah, I guess it was a hotel, but it was like a cabaret.
It's a hotel,
okay.
And so they have evening events in the same way that you might have pub trivia or a disco downstairs or whatever. And there was dancing.
And they would just sit and watch the people professionally dance.
And you could also get classes, and because it was swanky. And that's why you had that tennis player as well.
Yes. I think George Bartlett, I think.
Yes.
There were a lot of people. That's what we're trying to say. There were a lot of characters in this book that could potentially throw you off the scent. Mm-hmm. We watched we watched the only two there are, right? There's Joan Hickson version and the Geraldine McEwen version. And I like the Geraldine McEwen version just for Joanna Lumley. But you know what? We saved the TV stuff till the end. Anyway.
There's suspicion around Dolly's husband.
Spoiler alert.
Unfortunately.
Yes.
Because he does have an eye for the ladies. And you got to feel for Dolly in that circumstance. And I think Christie, it's another case where Christie says a lot without saying a lot, where there seems to be at least an awareness on Dolly's part. That whole notion of, cheating in your heart or being emotionally unfaithful. And he goes off and kills pigs or does whatever he does.
Yeah, like shoots
to work off the stress. And she has this heartbreaking line. She says, well, and I have my flowers or I have my garden. And it's just, there does seem to be a stable marriage, but one that's not necessarily filled with genuine, heartfelt love. I think there's affection, but not love. And then, but then because he does have an eye for the ladies, and he was in the vicinity, then he's the prime suspect initially. And so Dolly reacts to this by effing off to the coast with her gal pal, but it's really because I think she's maybe scared of what she's going to find, or
I never took that from this.
There might be a doubt about him that she has in her mind that something might have happened and she just can't stand it. And of course the upshot is then she realizes she's like, no, I have to be with him. I have to go back. This is horrible what people are saying and assuming of him.
Yes.
And so you do see a love story that's actually renewed in the process. It's really nice.
Never took it from that he was that like not like a gigolo, but I mean like
but I think he flirts. I think he's a flirt.
He's a flirter.
And maybe Dolly wasn't getting the attention. I've got my garden.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's my thought.
The progression of the story is that you're right. Like Dolly decides, Jane, you're going to come with me to the Majestic Hotel because
find out about this girl.
Yeah,
once she's identified as
once
Ruby.
They're identified, but how did she know? How did they know to go there again?
They were looking up missing girls in the area, and there were actually two.
Oh, right. There was one named Pamela Reeves. Okay, who was a local girl guide. But
I was a Virgin, by the way, which is like
a what?
A Virgin, which is the Irish girl guide. It's like St. Bridget's.
And you were a Virgin.
That wasn't very good.
So the other three main characters that we meet at the hotel once Dolly and Jane get there. No, we're bouncing back and forth between Inspector Slack and Colonel Melchett. They find out that Ruby Keene was a dancer at this Majestic Hotel. She had befriended I don't want to say elderly, but he was older. He was
definitely a sugar daddy.
Yes, a rich man named Conway Jefferson, and who kind of took her under his wing and wanted to adopt her.
Yeah.
Because 8 years prior to that, he had lost his wife, son, and daughter in an airplane crash. And so right now he's kind of being attended to or looked after by his son-in-law, Mark Gaskell, who was married to his daughter, Rosamond. And Adelaide, who was married to his son. He's got a daughter-in-law and a son-in-law. He's got a will. And since his children, his natural biological children were dead, it comes out that he had written in his son and daughter-in-law into the will. But he was thinking of changing it and giving the money to Ruby Keene because he wanted to adopt her. So obviously, boom, prime suspects, Adelaide and Mark Gaskell.
I think that's the thing that kicks the remaining adults in the family into a tailspin.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that this would have been a really potentially creepy storyline. But you just see how times have changed, that an 80-year-old man can adopt an 18-year-old and nobody bats an eye.
Yeah,
It's like,
I thought that was really weird.
Yeah.
Like, I still think something else was going on there.
Nobody called child services.
Yeah. Now, the other main character was Josie Turner, who turned out to be Ruby Keene's cousin. So she also worked at the Majestic as a dancer.
And she'd hurt her ankle.
And that's why she asked her to fill in for her. Yeah. Right? Basil Blake. Who was the actor. Who's kind of moved in down the road from St. Mary Mead. Parties and coming in late at night, kind of getting into fights with his girlfriend, Dinah Lee.
And so that's the first case of mistaken identity in the book. It goes on and on there, but but there's definitely a trend because at first it's assumed that she's the body in the library. Yeah.
And she gets out of the car and she's like yelling at him, why did you leave me? There's a lot going on in the timeline. Let me just stop there. I think we've named most of the people that we need to know about.
I do like how Slack would love to just kick Marple to the curb and tries his best to just put her on hold, put her on hold, put her on hold. But
he didn't seem as harsh to her in this book, I thought. I think he's...
Yeah, because he has to admit that she's right. It's the worst thing.
I hope there's a thawing going on there in the series between Slack.
Yeah.
Like, I hope he starts to treat Miss Marple as an equal.
I think it just gets funnier and funnier, too.
Henry Clithering was interesting because he was all about Miss Marple. He was just so dapper, and I was like, why don't those two get together? You know, he was just he seems really just loves her mind and just wants to chat with her about stuff, and so I liked him.
Yeah.
But I guess he was hired by Conway Jefferson to help with the investigation. Okay, so let me stop there and say, at this point, and I'll give you my answer, but who did you think in the beginning of the book? Who did you think?
Well, George Bartlett, right?
The dance partner?
Yeah, he just seemed sleazy. But I did kind of think that the cousin.
Josie. Okay. That's interesting. So I did not think it was Mark because I thought Mark made himself too obvious in the initial conversations. Mm-hmm. I should know by now with Christie's writing that when she tries to have someone be like, yeah, they think, I'm guilty, so I must be, that person actually could be. So I thought he was talking too directly about everything. And I was like, no, he just seems like really casual and just like, whatever. I thought it was Adelaide, the daughter-in-law, because she has a son, so Conway Jefferson's grandson. Mm-hmm. Oh, and you liked Peter Carmody in the adaptation, the little boy.
I love the little kid. Because he's the one who shows up with the had a broken from a murderer, and he's just wonderful. Like I would have followed him around all day and just been like, "What else did you find? I found a dead bug from a murderer." But he's got the fingernail, the fingernail in the
the fingernail clippings
in the matchbox, and he's keeping them to show his friends at home. Back at school.
Oh, I should say, his name is Peter Carmody. He's not Conway Jefferson's biological grandson, right? Mm-hmm. Because Adelaide had him by another guy.
And everybody's dismissing him, and he actually is the one with all the information and knows exactly, basically. Because he says it right early on. Well, somebody asks him, I think Slack asks him, well, who do you think did it? And I think my mom did it, or whatever he says. I think my uncle did it.
I thought the unraveling of this mystery was so intricate to me.
Mm-hmm. It seemed open and shut.
It seemed open and shut, but there was a lot going on. Again, it's the second novel so far of the Miss Marple series where she includes 2 deaths, 2 murders. Mm-hmm. So there's throwing bodies at you left and right. Yeah. There's fingernail clippings. There's wills. There's a lot of people to choose from as far as who is involved or what happened.
And they're all pretty plausible, too.
They're all very plausible. But I forget what clinches it for Miss Marple. I think she's slowly coming to see things.
Right away, she notices that there's a disparity in quality. Both she and Dolly agree that the overall appearance of the girl and the dress she's wearing, the girl does not seem to fit into the dress that she's wearing. And I think her first comment is she's very young. So she, from the start...
Right away, she hones in on the clues that really matter, that have an impact on the way the case will be solved. Like, the first thing, she looks very young.
Mm-hmm. And then she realizes that a mistake has been made.
She does. And now, I'm forgetting what brings her...
It didn't go right.
Well, she asks to sit in on some interviews that I think, is it Slack or Melchett is doing with some of those local Girl Scouts or Girl Guides. The missing girl is Pamela Reeves. And this is going on in the background, very lightly. They mention it here and there. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, you've got her like, I'd like to sit in, because they're trying to find out why Pamela didn't come home when she said she was going to she left her friend, one of her last friends there, and said she was going to take the bus home or not go to a movie or go shopping. Mm-hmm. Anyway, it turns out,
Florence, they interviewed Florence, and she's like, she had an audition. She was going to get a screen credit.
That's after Miss Marple shook her down.
Which is great. Yeah.
That was a great scene in the adaptation where she's like, this is very serious. Yeah. If you do not, because she could sense her nervousness.
Yeah. She's
like, if you're holding anything back, you could like go to prison or something. I mean, she really scared this girl. And then she broke down and said, well, she said she had an audition and she was going to meet with someone. Mm-hmm. And so, boom, I'm like, well, that's Basil.
Yeah.
And that leads to his arrest.
Yeah.
Right? But there's still more going on in the background. And I'm like, I thought that would be open and shut. But it wasn't.
He's pretty vehement that he didn't do it. And then
he didn't.
The Marple says, stop pretending that you're not married to him.
She talks to Dinah.
Right.
And she's like, again, it comes down to her sense of human nature. Mm-hmm. She's like a psychologist.
She's also really aware that with this development, there are going to be consequences within the neighborhood, within the community. So people are going to be not very happy with you for having lied to them, number one. And so you're going to be faced with a barrage of hostility and questions and doubt.
Yeah.
And it's not just your husband and it's not a game anymore. But she immediately thinks about the individual now. Because she knows that they're innocent.
But with her sense of human nature, she kind of already knew that they were married, but they just liked the show of being scandalous.
We know those people. We do. We're not those people, but we know those people.
Yeah.
We're having an argument, everybody.
Oh, yeah. So essentially it comes down to this. It was those fingernail clippings, the raggedy dress that she was wearing. Not a raggedy, but it was not something a dancer at the Majestic with a sugar daddy would be wearing. Mm-hmm. So what came down to the interrogation or the questioning of the Girl Scouts was that they found a burned out car.
Yeah.
And there was a burned up body in it.
Yeah.
Okay. So they assumed that was Pamela Reeves. The person in the burned up car was Ruby Keene. The body in the library was Pamela Reeves. And what gave it away was her bitten fingernails, something like a young girl would do, and what she was wearing. The ending is that Josie Turner, her cousin, was in league with, she wanted to marry Mark Gaskell and get in on the will money. Mm-hmm. But, so what they did was they said, let's set it up so that Conway announces, I'm changing my will and I'm giving all my money to a hostel. And sure enough, it's another one of those scenes where she doesn't write the trap. Mm-hmm. It just happens.
Right.
But in the adaptations, they show you.
Yeah.
So they set the trap, and sure enough, she's caught red-handed, like sneaking into his room, getting ready to, take him out. I thought Mark was kind of sleazy, but also maybe just a little too honest to be guilty. But he was in on it with Josie. Mm-hmm. So they worked on it together. Oh, we forgot to mention the biggest part, that why Basil was arrested. Well, turns out the body was in his house.
Right, they dumped it at his place first. That's why.
Because why? Oh, they wanted to just pin it on him.
Yeah, that's why the cousin Josie was like, "Where did you find it? I mean, that's terrible. Of course, I'll look at the body and see if it's my cousin. But where did you find it?" And then she has a genuine reaction in that moment. Like, she seems angry when Dolly and Miss Marple are quizzing her lightly. And that's another thing I do love, that the two of them just trample over the police trying to keep a sterile crime scene, and they're just like, we'll be right back, and they just go straight through, and then they're interrogating her, but that's the one thing where her mask seems to slip.
So there you have it as far as the book goes. Now we move into the adaptations, which is the one that did the thing that I hated. Which is they changed the relationship.
They did. This is the more recent.
This is the Joanna Lumley one. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So let's start with the Geraldine McEwen.
The interesting thing about the McEwen adaptation, they start with the plane crash, right? Or something, whatever it is, that they're in the middle of the dinner.
It's like an error.
And so it doesn't...
A bomb drops.
It kind of starts... The cold open is interesting, and if you know the story, you see where it's going, but it's kind of abrupt and dramatic, and you're not quite sure, like, is this whole family dead now?
So with the Geraldine McEwen interpretation, or that adaptation, I would say I don't think it was necessary to include a bomb dropping to explain how Conway Jefferson's children died, or how he was injured. Also, they continue the storyline of her with this picture of some soldier that was her husband or her lover. Right. And it's like, this is not what Agatha Christie wrote. The Joan Hickson adaptation is more true because, it's not retconned, You're not adding some person from her past that doesn't belong there. Mm-hmm. But anyway, that's just my little beef. But they continue on with that, so I'm assuming all of the Miss Marple, Geraldine McEwen stories will have her sitting at the table looking at the picture of the husband. So a little bit, yeah. But what I loved Joanna Lumley's Dolly Bantry. Yes. I wish we could have transported her from the Geraldine McEwen one into the Joan Hickson, although I think they would have had a different...
That would have been crazy.
Yeah, Joan Hickson's a little too buttoned up. Joanna Lumley to me is absolutely fabulous, and Patsy. It's just...
And she does show up again.
I love her. Yeah. So I liked the McEwen adaptation for that, but what I hated it for, with a fiery passion, they decided to rewrite the culprits, switch their... Well, first of all, they changed one of the accomplices into Adelaide and not Mark. But they kept Josie Turner, so it was a lesbian love story gone awry. And then they're killers, too, to boot. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they rewrote it so that Josie is having a torrid affair with Adelaide. And they both decide to, and it was really disturbing when it came to that part where they were grooming this poor Pamela Reeves.
That was horrible.
Like they knew they were going to kill her.
Yeah.
And they're, let's make you pretty and we're going to get you ready for the screen test. And I'm like, this is horrible. Because
that was chilling.
It was chilling.
Yeah.
Let's just not rewrite this to be hip with the times. Not everyone needs to be gay and woke and everything. It was a man and a woman.
Sure.
And that's what was going on. But instead they do it this way, and then you've got the evil lesbian murderess that's going on.
Well, but either way, it's creepy as hell because there was grooming going on. Regardless of gender, right? Yeah. It was like, turn this way, and then it's a slippery slope, right? But it's like that was nasty. That was just cold-hearted too. And so I guess kudos to Christie for going there, but
no. Oh, you mean in the book?
As a plot line. Yeah.
Yes. Well, they just took you're off camera a little bit. No. You got to get on the camera. She's trying her best to get off the screen.
Keep talking.
Yeah, but not kudos to the people on that Marple adaptation to just decide we're going to change it from Mark and Josie into Adelaide and Josie.
It's so silly.
And then the adaptation shows them both being in prison. And by the way, there goes your son has no parent now.
Right. Good job.
Okay, and they're calling to each other from the jail cells. I love you. I'm like, this is ridiculous and stupid and insulting.
If you want this plot line, go rent Bound. It's done so much better. Although the thing I say about Bound is the first half of that movie has no plot but great sex scenes. The second part of the movie has no sex scenes but a great plot. But if you want to do the crime scene,
the second half of that,
gangster thing.
Bound did a great job with that. So now we're going to move into the Joan Hickson adaptation, which I thought was more suitable. It was in her Dolly Bantry, whoever played her,
Gwen Watford.
Okay,
I looked it up.
She would know.
Amazing.
She played a more soulful and melancholy. She played a more like, I'm not happy right now with my marriage. Whereas Joanna Lumley just seemed like, I'm having a fabulous time at this hotel. And she's like horse laughing at the table. Remember that? Where they cracked you up? She was just like,
the scenes of those two, specifically in this adaptation, where Marple is deep in thought, the world could be crashing down around her. And for Dolly, it very much is on a personal level. And so she's full of these questions. Like she's playing 520 questions with herself out loud, to Jane. And Jane just can't hear a single damn thing, and she just keeps walking, and Dolly stops, and she's like, what? Say the last thing that I said. But even at that point, Jane has moved on. She already knows who did it. She just doesn't know why. And Dolly's like, what do you mean? Tell me. I mean, I think I love Dolly because it's all this heart and all this, not bluster, but all this bravado, I suppose, up front. And she comes across as being somebody that, if she shows up at the party you're at, you're walking away with some good stories that she has to tell. Yeah. And I just like the dichotomy between her and Jane. But, and she just thinks Jane is the bee's knees too. So I
like it. Yeah, I like their friendship. It's fun. So apples to oranges or apples to apples, I'd say the Joan Hickson adaptation, it was enjoyable, but it wasn't as kind of loose. Joanna Lumley really kind of made it for me. And I prefer that one, although I really hated the changing of the genders and changing the killer, one of the killers. I didn't care for that, and I didn't need that to be kind of shoved down my throat.
And they did that in the previous Murder at the Vicarage. They had 2 executions instead of 1 at the end.
Oh.
Yeah. Janet McTeer gets sent to the...
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, damn it.
Well, I'm curious. But I think to your point, they do flesh it out, and they're doing the same with Branagh's interpretation of Death on the Nile as well, and I hate it. I really hate it.
Oh, I know.
But it's all of this, let's humanize her or normalize her in some way. And I think Jane's lack of background adds to her, the sense that she has of the character being enigmatic and somewhat of a cipher in and of herself. And also just, she's an iconic figure. You don't need to fill in the before, during, and afters. Let people make up what they want. It's irrelevant to the nature and spirit of the character as you're reading about her. So, it's all filler. I don't know. I don't know why people do that.
I don't know either. I don't know if they think it'll make it more scintillating to watch or something. But, the reason why we're here is for Christie. And we're here for her writing and her mind and trying to guess the killer, which I've never been able to do. So The Moving Finger is the next book. I have it in the room right now. I've got to, get going on that. I'll be curious to see what changes. If anything changes in the way she's presenting Marple. And I'm curious to see how the adaptations will stand up. All right, well, I think...
back on track.
Yeah, we're back on track. And thanks for waiting for this wrap-up, guys. We hope you enjoyed it. Moving Finger wrap-up will be hopefully at the end of this month.
Yeah.
We're gonna wrap it up one way or the other by the end of this month.
Because the next book is great.
So the next book, I'm so excited for the next book. So we're just gonna...
And it's a shame that you did... It's a shame for many reasons that you got sick. Right. But I think if we'd had a discussion right after reading this, it would be the content of the conversation would be the same, but this was a great book.
Yes, we both give it a thumbs up. We enjoyed The Body in the Library, autofocus. I'm waiting on a memory card for my new camera. Woo! And once we have it, we're done with this stupid microphone.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Peggy's only going to do her book reviews while she's skiing downhill. Because, GoPro. Woo! Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to be fully mobile.
Yes.
And
God help us all.
Scary. Okay, so thanks for joining us, BookTube. And we'll see you next time at the end of the month for The Moving Finger.
Woo!
Bye.